All right, so Joe, let's start with the headline news of the day. The Oakland A's are kind of good this week on the field, and they are exceptional with their fan base. How excited are you to see all the pictures and videos that we're allowed to see, of course, tonight, assuming that it's all shown on the broadcast?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cathartic moment for A's fans. And this is one of the issues that has come up a lot in recent years, not just in Oakland, but where we talk about cities not supporting their teams. And often as not what it is that the owner hasn't given them a product, a team that's worth supporting. If you look at the history of the A's in Oakland, they've drawn very well. You look back to the 70s, you look at the 80s. There was a lot of time in the A's history that they were actually outdrawing the Giants. Now, that hasn't been the case in recent years. The Giants built Oracle Park. The A's have now had a succession of owners that haven't invested in the team. But there's not a question in my mind that that city of Oakland and that whole area will support the A's if they're good. We have a lot of history that says that. So I think what we're going to see tonight is the fans coming out for the hottest team in baseball, but also to show that, hey, look, this isn't about the fans. The fans are here if you give them something to root for. It's about an ownership group that just hasn't done that.
I want to show the tweet that you put up too, which AJ referred to earlier in the show about how much money is being spent on this situation. The A's are undefeated since the Nevada legislature went into overtime at 250 G's a day to try to force a bad bill through and steal the team from Oakland. So yes, they're undefeated. And also, Joe, so you posted this, 11 hours ago. When it convenes tomorrow, the Nevada legislature will be into its fourth day of haggling over SB1, the A's ballpark bill, at $250K a day in costs. It has spent $1 million on this issue, which is more than the A's will pay 19 players on tonight's 26-man roster. I mean, that is insane. And I'm sure people in Nevada are starting to get pretty pissed off about the situation as well. I was actually in Vegas this past weekend asking some people, some locals about it that were at the casino. So, I mean, who knows what their status was? They might have had a few drinks in them, but I was like, hey, you excited for a potential A's team? They were like, we'd love to have baseball, but not them.
Yeah, a lot of this is people rejecting the A's themselves. And there's been a lot of comparison to the Knights, the Golden Knights, I should say the hockey team. Well, the hockey team was an expansion team that came in. Because of the expansion rules and the way the NHL is set up, they were able to spend money and put a good team on the ice their first year. They ended up going to the Stanley Cup final that year. The A's are likely is not going to have that success. And, 5 years from now, the A's will certainly be better than they are today. And a lot of smart guys in that front office. But they're not going to spend money until the new park comes into play. John Fisher's made that clear. They're probably not going to be good for a few years. So you've got them playing in a minor league park. So a lot of the benefits that the Golden Knights had coming in, the A's are not going to have access to. I do think that down the road, Las Vegas will welcome an expansion team that they can call their own, much the way they did the Golden Knights. But the A's right now are not that team.
I have a fan question from Ronnie who says, why can't the owners kick out the A's owners since he is making the owners look bad? Well, you can't do that.
in the time I've been doing this, we've seen the A's, we've seen the MLB put pressure on the parking lot guy, Frank McCourt, to sell the Dodgers. That was back in 2004. They put pressure on the Wilpons to sell the Mets in recent years. There were business level issues, and those were tentpole franchises in Los Angeles and New York. Typically, the owners are going to want support for their own deals, whether it's their stadium. We've seen the commissioner put pressure on the Milwaukee government, the state of Wisconsin, to spend money on repairs that are necessary to American Family Field. All the owners are going to want support for their own particular cash grab. So I think that's why they're standing aside and saying they want Fisher to be successful here. I think eventually you end up with a problem where the team just isn't generating enough revenue. But for this particular problem, they want the A's to be solved. Rob Manfred has been very clear. He wants to get to expansion, and MLB can't get to expansion until the A's and Rays situations have been solved.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the game in terms of the owners of teams? My thing always with baseball is they matter so much more because we technically don't have a salary cap, even though some owners, of course, treat it that way, or small market teams can't mess around with anywhere near a luxury tax as it is. So do you have certain owners that you respect or really like what they're doing, and then others where you're like, this is crazy, and if we didn't have them, the game would be in a much better place?
Well, sure. There's you look in at the low end, it's easier to identify. We talk about John Fisher, we talk about Bob Nutting in Pittsburgh, and I think there's some real interesting issues coming up with as the Pirates get better now. They're building this really good young team. Is Nutting going to support them by raising the payroll? He didn't do it in the 2010s, and some really good teams ended up not being as successful as they might have been. As far as good ownerships, I'm as shocked as anyone to say that Liberty Media, owning the Braves, have been a very good steward of that franchise. They've given a succession of GMs the tools to develop talent. And when that talent has been worth paying, they've been willing to write the checks. I give the Braves a lot of credit for that. Obviously, the teams that spend a lot of money, the Dodgers can't really say a whole lot of bad about Guggenheim and the money they put into the team. Most ownership groups fall in the middle, but at the extremes, yeah, I think that there are some ownerships that do better for their fan bases than others.